Welcome to the roller coaster ride of business with Hannah Edwards on Global Voice Radio. Hannah and her guests share the real deal, the ups and downs, the highs and lows of building a business. Here is your host, Hannah Edwards.
Hey guys, and welcome to the roller coaster ride of business. I'm your host, Hannah Edwards, and today I am joined by the awesome Maxwell Ivey. Thank you for joining me, Maxwell.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to us having a great conversation.
So I was reading your bio, and it says that you are a life goals coach, an online media publicity rep, an award-winning author, and the host of the What's Your Excuse show.
That is all true, but that doesn't mention that I'm also a singer, a traveler, and I used to be a Carnival owner. So it's kind of interesting that I'm doing a show where part of the title has the word roller coaster in it.
Oh, see, I love the link there. You were meant to be on the show.
Yes. Well, that's what I grew up wanting to do, was wanting to be part of the family's carnival, and I did that alongside my dad and my brothers for about 11 years. And then he died of lung cancer, and we realized we weren't prepared to run the business by ourselves. So for a while, we joined up with my uncle's carnival, and we were part of his show. But I was never really happy being on somebody else's midway. Plus, they did some things to discourage us from growing our part of the business. It's like, we're okay with y'all being here and subsisting, but we don't want you to grow any. And it's not surprising, because when I was growing up, we used to compete very bitterly with this other side of the family for festival and fair bookings. And so when part of my problem, actually, when we did go out of business as a separate carnival was, come on, do we have to lose to them? Is there somebody else we could join up with? Because, I mean, frankly, and for a while it was a problem for me, because my games were not able to do really well on their midway. There was a lot more competition than I had been used to on our smaller show. And eventually my cousin did actually put up duplicate versions of my games, to the point where I was forced off of the midway. Now, at the time, that was, was really a bad thing. But what it did was it forced me to say, okay, Max, you are no longer a carnival owner or part of a traveling carnival business. What else do you know? What else can you do? And for a while, I had been helping people sell rides when my family, didn't need the rides we had. I sold those, and I thought, well, maybe I'll make this hobby, this part-time thing, into a full-time profession. And I started a website called the Midway Marketplace, where I help people buy and sell amusement equipment, games, inflatables, concession machines, all sorts of stuff related to the amusement industry. And of course, this was in 2007 or 2008. That was pre-Facebook. Pre-Wi-Fi, it was pre-WordPress, and as a totally blind person, I'm trying to start an online business knowing absolutely nothing about what I was doing, just deciding, okay, well, what do I need to do next, and then asking people a bunch of stupid questions about how do I do that, and then, doing it the best way I could for a while, and then just learning as I went. For example, with my first website, as a blind person, at that time, the best option for creating a website was what was called WYSIWYG, which stands for what you see is what you get.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I couldn't use WYSIWYG to create a website, so I had to learn how to hand code my site using HTML. And I was directed to the W3C.org school, and I went through other tutorials, one lesson at a time, until I got to the point where I could build, add to, and maintain a decent basic website. And of course, being a blind person doing this with no help, it was a lot of people were really impressed by my site. Even though it was not the prettiest, it was nowhere close to being perfect. The colors were horrible. The photos, I couldn't edit the photos, so sometimes there'd be 2 or 3 different size photos on the same page together. But what I did was I said, okay, the website isn't great, but all it has to do is show this stuff to people, because if they can't see it, they can't fall in love with it. If they don't love it, they won't buy it. So I spent my time sending out emails, participating in forums, making a bunch of phone calls, and just saying, go to the website. You can see what it is that we're talking about. And I was able to make some good sales, including I sold a simulator for $50,000 to a man in Australia. I sold a carousel for over $100,000 for a mall in Georgia. And I sold a fair number of other smaller pieces too. But the reason that worked with a not so great website was I focused on recruiting the clients, promoting the equipment, making the sales, and worrying about stuff that I could actually do something about. And as I mentioned, people were impressed. A lot of sighted people said, Max, we are inspired by what you're doing and the fact that you continue to take on new challenges and opportunities. We want you to share more about that. So I said, okay, I'll start another website where I can share honestly about what it is to be a blind entrepreneur, and that's where the blindblogger.net came from. And for those people who have a problem with me, emphasizing the fact that I'm a blind business person, I should mention that I did not pick that name. That name was given to me by people in online communities who had been calling me the blind blogger for over a year. And when I said I was going to start a new website, they're like, Max, we've been calling you the blind blogger forever. So if that site's available, you need to get it. So that's what I did. I have, shared the way I have improved myself over the years through coaching, through doing interviews like we're having right now. And I've written 3 self-help books, and one of which did happen to win the Amtrak Writers in Residence.
That's fantastic. So it was kind of bittersweet then, going from being, I want to say, pushed out by that side of your family to then learning all this new stuff, because yes, you had to leave behind what you knew, but you've seemed to have come so far since then.
Right. There's a part in my first book, Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, where I actually thanked my cousin for taking the actions that he did that forced me out of the business. Because before this started, I thought I was a Carnival owner. Maybe I thought of myself as an equipment broker. I didn't think of myself as much more. Since then, I've realized that there's so many more things that I am talented and capable of doing, and even more that I haven't done yet that I know that I can learn how, or I can work with other people and figure out how. And I would have never known all this stuff about myself if I were still traveling up and down the road 50 weeks a year, bringing carnivals to people's towns and cities. So he did me a great favor. I feel like I'm happier doing what I'm doing than he is doing what he's doing. He would never admit that because he owns rides worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. He makes a much better living than I do financially, but I've seen him. I've been around him, and I have no doubt in my mind I'm happier doing what I'm doing than he is doing what he's doing. But that's only my opinion.
And you seem to have found this whole new side of yourself that you definitely wouldn't have found had you still been doing it now.
No, absolutely not. And I think that that's the case with a lot of people. I think one of the best things that came out of the economic downfall of 2007, 8, 9 was so many people who had been going to work and doing jobs that they hated for most of their life finally had the freedom to see, well, what else can I do? Who else am I? And in a lot of cases, they found out that there is a lot more in them as well. We have a lot of new entrepreneurs, a lot of new coaches and experts out there in the world because they lost their jobs in corporate or manufacturing America.
Definitely. So tell me more about your blogging journey then. When did you start your blog up?
Okay, I started a blog with the Midway Marketplace about 2 years after that website started. And it's one of those things, people said, Max, you got a website, now you need a blog. And I was like, well, I don't know what a blog is. What does it do? Why do I need one? And how do I create one? So I was lucky enough to find out that there's a program called Mars Edit for Apple users. And it allows a blind person to create blog posts and pages in a really simple, almost word processor type atmosphere on your computer, and then upload them to your website. So yeah, it helps a lot with adding images and videos and links. It makes the whole process so much simpler. And I tell sighted people about it too, because another feature that Mars Edit has is you can create a full, complete, finished post, even if you don't have internet access. And then when you get internet access, you just press the button and uploads that post. So you avoid that downtime of traveling by plane or train or car, or well, I guess if you're the driver, you wouldn't be on your laptop. But you avoid downtime because, a lot of people, if you're using WordPress and you're using it from the WordPress dashboard, you pretty much can't do a whole lot if you don't have access to the net.
So how do you find being an entrepreneur and being blind? Like, obviously, it definitely doesn't hold you back from everything that you've been telling us.
Well, I find that that being an entrepreneur or being online is one of those things. It's great about being a blind person in the 21st century, because we have so many more opportunities to us. As far as the entrepreneur side of it, I had less trouble convincing people to do business with a blind person than I had getting people to do business with a guy who insisted that they pay him a commission on sales instead of depending on advertising revenue like my competitors do. That was a very hard business model for people to accept, especially coming from a guy, hey, who's this new kid? We don't know who he is. What's he doing thinking he's going to charge us 10% of our equipment sales to help us do something we could do ourselves? So that was the hardest part. I had a few people who said, I don't know why a blind guy is in a business where it depends so heavily on the visual, on managing images and video. But there was very few of those people over the years. Most people are really impressed. And one of the things I found was if I updated my website and I put a new photo on the home page or added a new page or added a new listing, I could upload that to my website and I could post on Facebook and say, hey, you guys know I'm blind. I can't see this. Would y'all tell me how it looks? And a lot of times I would get more traffic from people wanting to make sure that my updated website was working and looking right than I would get if I said, hey, I got a new piece of equipment for sale, or I just made a sale, or I just wrote this article about how you can do better at selling your equipment. So I've been very blessed as far as people wanting to help and not wanting to criticize or throw rocks. Yeah. But I find that to be the general norm across the internet. I tell people all the time, if people knew how friendly and supportive and uplifting the internet is in general, then everybody would have a blog or a podcast or both.
Definitely. So
there are a lot of people out there who want to help you, and they aren't just doing it because they want you to pay them or they're hoping you'll be a client down the road. There are many, many truly generous people out here. And if you will be open with them, if you will let people see that you're working, that you're trying, that you're humble, and let them know what it is that you need help with, somebody will show up, and next thing you know, you've got somebody helping you migrate your website from HTML to WordPress, or you have somebody helping you fix the problem where your images are showing up in the middle of your blog posts, or somebody shows up and goes, hey, I want to help you publish your book. So that stuff happens all the time if you're willing to let people know what it is that you need out there.
So tell me more about your books. You just mentioned it and you said one of them won an award.
Yes. Well, the first book, Leading You Out of the Darkness into the Light, A Blind Man's Inspirational Guide to Success, is about my travel from being a Carnival owner to being an equipment broker, and the lessons I've learned. And there are 11 exercises in it that people can work through, and they can report on their progress to me via my email address, which I included in the book because I didn't just want to have this book be a book that I sold or I wanted it to be a book that helped people. And to me, there are a lot of people who have read the book, listened to the audio, went to the seminar, watched the video, but they get home and they're still the same person. They still can't make any progress. So I thought, if they have at least one person out there who they know is going to listen when they report on the progress, they might be more likely to succeed. So that's the first book, and I used that book when submitting to the Amtrak Writers in Residence competition, and they selected me as one of the 24 people for the 2016 prize. They pick 24 people every year out of thousands of people across the U.S. who apply for the prize of a free cross-country trip on Amtrak, where the idea is if you get away from your usual surroundings and the usual people, that you will have some new ideas. You'll get those writing juices flowing. And so while I was on the train, I wrote what turned out to be my third book, The Blind Blogger's New York City Adventures, How You Can Make Your Dreams Come True. And it's all about how I competed for and won, what I was thinking and feeling through that process, how I decided where I was going to go and when. And of course, Amtrak doesn't pay all the bills. They only provide the transportation. So, there's a chapter in there about where did all the money come from, because New York City is a very expensive city once you get there. Very expensive. I stayed at Airbnb and it still cost me $900 for 12 days, and I was staying in a one room of a 3-room condominium for the time I was there. It still was over $900, so I talk about where the money came from, and I do my best to share, openly and honestly, because I really want people who read this book to during the process, I want them to think to themselves, okay, what can I do right now that will help me get closer to my goal? What is it that I'm not doing that will help me start my business or grow my business? And a good friend recently told me, Max, it's not just what they can do that they aren't doing already. She said, it's what are they doing that they can eliminate? What are some of the habits? What are some of the expenses? What are some of the people that are part of your everyday life that you don't think a second thought about? That, if you remove those things from your life, from your business, you might be able to make big strides because of that as well.
Definitely.
So I'm hoping that people will take steps. They'll get inspired and motivated, and if they need help, if they get stuck along the way, I love hearing from people who have read or who are reading my books.
Well, I'm definitely going to go and find them after this so I can have a look and see.
Well, I appreciate that, and if you like, I'd be more than happy to offer you the price that I offer them to at book signings, and we can talk about that after the show.
Sounds like a plan. So how does all of this then get you to your journey of being a life goals coach?
Well, people look at me and they go, Max, you have you've overcome so much. You've managed to figure out a way to keep moving forward. You find solutions instead of making excuses, and you solve problems for yourself. And so, to me, what my best attributes as far as being a coach to other people is, one, I can help them get clear on whether the goal they're going after is their goal or somebody else's goal. Because I have to admit, some days I think my goal of being in the Carnival had to do with growing up watching my dad do it.
Yeah.
And then I can help them get clear on the steps they'll need to take, the skills and resources they'll need to accumulate in order to get there. And then I'm really good at helping people stay accountable along the way. So I think it's one of those things. I teach more from experience and example than from any coaching formula or coaching academy. But I have no doubt that when people look at me, they're thinking, he's been there, he's done that, he's still doing it. If there's anybody who can help me figure out why I'm not or how I can do it better, he would be the guy I need to talk to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've definitely got a long way from where you were to what you're doing now. Your journey is fascinating. I'm really enjoying listening about it. So, online media publicity rep, how did you get into that one?
Well, that's another one of those things where I was doing something because it solved the problem. About 6 years ago, actually, February of 2013, I was still primarily doing the Midway marketplace, and I was disappointed that I couldn't find a way to meet people face to face more. The major trade shows and conventions for the amusement industry are on the East or West Coast. I live in a suburb of Houston, which doesn't have the transportation options of London or New York or Chicago or even Atlanta. So I was thinking there has to be some way that I can meet people and share my story and share my business and get more exposure. And the next thing I know, I'm reading a post on one of the small business groups on LinkedIn, and this guy, Brian Jackson, says he's looking for people to come on his radio show on Blog Talk Radio, which I had never heard of before, and talk about their small businesses. So I filled out the form. I said, yeah, I want to do it. They selected me for the show. And so I did the interview on his Small Business Friday program. And I did that with him for about 6 months every Friday because it was working well, and I could actually see the uptick in the visitors to my website for the first 24 or 48 hours after I did one of his shows. So, and after I did his show for a while, a couple of people reached out to me and said, Max, we're starting a podcast. We'd like to have you come on as our first guest or our second guest. And so I did that, and that got me to thinking, there are lots of other radio shows and podcasts and other online platforms where I could be sharing my story in a personal, conversational format where people could really get to know me and get to like me and want to meet me or do business with me. So that's how it started. I did it for me. And then about 3 years ago, friends started asking me, Max, how do you get on all these shows? And I would write them these long emails. I mean, I would tell them everything I knew, everything I was doing. And one of my friends, Michael Babcock, said, Max, you can't keep giving all this stuff away for free. You need to start charging for it somehow.
Definitely.
He said, you need to create an online course, or you need to start hiring yourself out as a consultant or a representative. So I did both. I created an online course called On the Air, how to use radio shows and podcasts to share your story, reach a wider audience, and build your brand. And that's on my website. And then I said, this might be working great for me, but how do I know it'll work for other people? So I put it out online. I was looking for 3 people who were willing to work with me. I wasn't going to charge them anything, but they would have to do some work. And because, a lot of people will say, sure, there's something that's free, but then they won't show up. They won't do the work of actually going through whatever program it is you're trying to get them to use. So, but 3 great people, Alex Okoroji, who's an actress from Nigeria, David Steele, who's a long-form poet, singer, and songwriter from the UK, who's actually losing his vision to RP, and Tim Olson, a psychologist, minister, and author of a book called Growing Up Nobody, because his father suffered with mental illness. So these 3 people, they showed up. We worked online to create profiles for them. I started finding shows and sending out pitches, and they started getting booked on shows, and I was like, okay, this is working. This could actually be a thing. And so then the next step is, well, of course, what am I going to charge people for this? And, so that was the hard part. Originally, I thought, well, it seems like everything online is $1,000. So I thought, well, I'll charge them $1,000 for the first 90 days. And, that didn't really go over too well. Finally, I got one person to offer to do $500, but they wanted to do it in 3 installments. And I said, well, that's not too bad, because at the end of the 3 months, if I can get them to sign up for a few more months, that'll be okay.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And recently it came to my attention that the $1,000 and the 3 months in advance was scaring people off. So now what I do is I charge a straight $200 per month. And I should mention that's as of August 30th of 2018, because as my network continues to grow and I've become able to get people on bigger shows such as Sirius, national broadcast radio or TV, naturally the fees will have to increase once I can do more for these people. But that's what I'm charging now, because that's a fee that at that fee, I feel like I'm not spending too much of my time each month to earn it. It's not so high that people are going to be emailing me or calling me constantly wanting to know how I'm earning it. But the most important thing about that number is I like to work. I really love seeing the progress of other authors and coaches. I love watching them grow into their message. And so by keeping the fee down there, I can work with these people who have never done a radio show before or who have never done a guest post before. And I can help them realize just how important their messages are. And I've got several clients right now who will tell you that before they met me, they didn't realize people even wanted to hear what they had to say, much less that lots of people would want to hear what they have to say.
Definitely.
So that's another thing about it. I really enjoy helping people and watching them grow. And I'm looking forward to the day when one of my clients is going to have a New York Times bestseller, or is going to be on Oprah's couch, or is going to be at a Hollywood premiere of the movie version of one of their books, and then I'll be able to say, you know, I knew that person when they were scared to get on Skype and talk to somebody about their story.
Oh, I love that. So tell me about your show. It's called What's Your Excuse? How did you come up with that?
Well, one of the things that people say to me quite often, either in person or online, is, if Max can do it, then what is my excuse? So when we were thinking about, yeah, it happens all the time. So when we were thinking about what to call the show, I really didn't want to call it No Excuses or What's Your Excuse, but you know, sometimes a name just picks you and there's really no way to avoid it. And that's basically what it was with this one. So What's Your Excuse is a show about transformation, about how people become the person they end up being. And it's also a show for people who are coaches and mentors who have lessons or techniques that they want to offer to people to help them grow personally or professionally. And at the end of every show, I haven't managed this yet. I'm still working on coaching up my guests. Yeah. But my goal is that eventually at the end of every show, my guest will say, I'm so-and-so, and if I can do it, then what's your excuse? That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, so far I haven't been able to get the guests to do my tagline, but I'm working on it.
So with everything you have going on, I have one really important question. Mm-hmm. How on earth do you fit it all in?
I don't. Some days you get things done in one area, you don't get them done in the other. Some days you get things done and you leave. You know, nobody gets it all done. That's one of the big lies we need to all agree on. Nobody is getting everything on their to-do list done. Let's just all agree on that. We can then all stop stressing about it and just do the best we can every day, because that's what I do. One of my favorite things about Ellen and her show is at the end of the show, the last thing she says before the credits roll is, be kind to yourself. So I think that's what we all need to do, is admit we are not going to get it all done. Do our best to do the important stuff rather than the urgent stuff, as Stephen Covey likes to talk to people about in his books, because there is a difference, and important is should always be done before urgent. Just because somebody's screaming at you to do it now doesn't mean it needs to be done now. But the main thing is, at the end of the day, be kind to yourself. Say you did the best you could do. I'm reminded of back when we had the Carnival, and we would run those pay one price days where people get a wristband. They could ride all the rides they wanted to. Yeah. And the help would get stressed. They're like, Mr. Ivey, talking to my dad, of course, there's all these people out here. They all want to ride. How are we going to manage this? And he would always tell them the same thing. You can only do what you can do. And when you rush, people get hurt. He said, so what you do is this. You take their tickets, you put them on the ride. You make sure they're locked in, you turn the ride on. You turn the ride off, you make sure everybody gets off, and you start over again. At the end of the day, if they want to complain, they're going to complain to me, not you. But, you know, he always tried to make it really simple for the help, that there is only so much you can do. And at the end of the day, if you didn't do it all, you're not a bad person, you're not a failure, you're not a horrible monster. You just probably gave yourself more stuff to do than you were capable of doing in the first place. And, oh, by the way, when you get to the point where you can, because not everybody can afford to, especially in the beginning, when you get to the point where you can, and you know somebody who can perform one of these jobs that is taking up time that you could be spending on something else that you enjoy doing more, or something that you're not real good at. Pay them, hire them, let them do it for you. That's one of the other things about doing online media work is most people could do what I do for themselves, but there's a lot of hard, mind-numbing, grinding work that goes into it on a daily basis. And most people, after they do it a while, are going to go, I like doing these interviews. They're fun. They're energizing. Man, if I have to send out another pitch email today, I'm going to tear my hair out. So that's another thing. If you find people that can do what it is you need done, and you have the money to hire them. Free that time up for something you enjoy doing.
So what is next for you in all of your businesses?
This is my least favorite question because people always ask me, what are you going to do next? And most of the time I don't know. Honestly, I tell myself all the time, Max, there was a time where you knew who you were and what you were going to do next. And where did that get you? So I do my best nowadays not to put limits on God or on the universe for people who prefer to say the universe. And I leave myself open to what's going to happen next. Some things I do like I recently pitched a TEDx event because I would like to share my story with larger audiences. And TEDx is one of those places where speakers have made their careers and where important messages have gotten heard by millions. So, I've done that. I love to sing, so I've been toying with the idea of doing kind of like a half concert, half motivational talk called Music and Motivation, where I would sing some and I would share some stories, and then I would explain the life lessons related to those personal experiences. And I've actually recorded a few videos and put them online, and people are receptive to the idea. It's one of the few areas where I'm having a little trouble actually pulling the trigger and facing the fear and booking the room and advertising that I'm going to do it. So that's, continuing to do book signings and continuing to be on podcasts and radio shows, because truly the most fun I have of anything I do for either of my businesses is to sit down with another business person, another entrepreneur, another dreamer, and have a conversation like this. And afterwards, I honestly try to schedule these as early in my day as possible, because I don't know how you can do an interview for a show and not feel better the rest of your day. I really just don't know how that would happen. I might be backwards, but I've talked to other people who are guests, and they tell me the same thing, that there's a real energy to having a live face-to-face conversation, even if it is halfway around the world over the net. So that's what I'm doing. I'm looking forward to travel more. I thought I'm still hopeful that I'm going to take a trip over to the UK in December. However, the funds haven't shown up for that trip yet. I've been invited by fellow bloggers and podcasters from the UK to come over there to visit, to explore, to do some interviews, possibly do some book signings. But as you know, it's kind of expensive to get from Houston, Texas to Sheffield. So I'm still waiting. I'm actively recruiting sponsors and working on generating more book sales, and just doing what I can every day to come in contact with that person who's going to go, okay, Max, you need a plane ticket? Here's your plane ticket. Or you? Well, I'm not saying. I hope people don't think I'm saying that flippantly. Nobody has ever, other than Amtrak, nobody's ever just called me up and said, hey, Max, I'm going to give you a plane ticket. But that doesn't mean it couldn't happen. And as long as I stay open to the possibility of happening, it's got a much better chance. So that's what I'm looking for. And, of course, as I mentioned to everybody, I am single and looking. So I'm hoping that somewhere during my travels, I'm going to run into somebody just as crazy as me.
That'd be fantastic.
But other than that, I'm open to finding out what the next thing is going to be. My theme song is The River by Garth Brooks. And while I don't exactly know how the song got in my head when he released it in 1993, it's, the words of that song are very appropriate for my life, because very little that I've done to this point has been, okay, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, F, and G.
Yeah.
More often it's been, well, I want to do this. I don't know how to do this. Would love it if somebody would help me understand how to do this or go along with me. And other things come from that. I've gone from a Carnival owner to an amusement equipment broker to a radio rock star, an online media rep, award-winning self-help author. So, so many things more than who I was when I was a Carnival owner.
Yeah.
And who really knows what's next? I mean, I hope people understand what it is I'm trying to say there, but I really don't know what is out there for me next, and I'm actually looking forward to being surprised.
That sounds fantastic. So, Max, where can people find you if they want to know anything more or they want to get in touch?
Yes, they can go to theblindblogger.net, or they can just drop me an email at justask@theblindblogger.net.
That's fantastic.
And I think my social media pages are all on the website like they should be, so theblindblogger.net. And I encourage people to contact me. I love answering questions for people. I don't feel like somebody should have to hire me or even be thinking about it in order to say hello and, maybe share a little bit of what's going on in their corner of the world, because I honestly believe that every time you meet a new person, it's an opportunity to make a new friend or to start a new collaboration, or maybe that person will be the one who will call you up when you need to be encouraged or inspired.
Definitely. So, guys, I'm going to wrap this up here and thank Max for joining me. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next for you, and I hope you manage to make it to the UK in December.
Well, if I do, or when I do, your name will be on the list of people I look for while I'm there.
That sounds like a plan. We could do a live interview on the show.
Well, good. We'll do a live interview, and who knows where we'll do it from. Maybe we should encourage people to suggest where we do the interview from. What kind of crazy answers we get. Before I finish the recording, though, I always like to make sure that I let you know, as the host, as the person who puts out the effort to make this happen, that I really appreciate you. I know that most podcasters, show hosts, are not doing this out of a plan to get rich, and even the ones who are doing it hoping for monetization they're not going to buy new houses from their podcast, or most of them aren't. So I want to make sure you know how much I appreciate your time, effort, and the money I know you invest in doing this.
That's great. Thank you for saying that. It's made me all emotional now.
That wasn't my intent, but I do appreciate you.
Thank you very much. So, guys, you can find me on Facebook on the Global Voice Radio page, or at Empowered VA, or at Empowered Magazine. And we're going to wrap it up here. I'll be back next week, and I hope we can get Max on again in a few months' time to have a check-in and see where you are with things and what's been happening. So, thank you, guys, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening. Join Hannah Edwards and the roller coaster ride of business every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Global Voice Radio, where your voice is heard.